Welcome to Lust Story, where we explore the hidden desires and forbidden attractions that lurk beneath the surface of ordinary lives. Our channel specializes in tales of temptation, infidelity, and the complex emotions that arise when boundaries are crossed. Today's story takes us into the complicated world of a woman caught between loyalty and unexpected desire. Remember to subscribe for more captivating stories of passion and betrayal that will leave you breathless. When I returned from the market that day, I had no idea that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't have imagined. It had been an ordinary morning, or so I thought. I went to the market to buy some groceries, picking up the usual things: fruits, vegetables, a few snacks for the house, and I had a sense of calm that comes with routine. Little did I know something unexpected awaited me when I stepped through the door. As I walked into the house, the soft sound of laughter echoed from the living room. It was my stepson Jake and his friend Daniel. Jake had been living with us for the past year, and though he was a good kid, I always felt a bit of distance between us. Maybe it was the age gap, or the fact that he had been used to life without a father figure for so long. But today, as I stepped inside, there was something different in the air, a tension, an electricity that wasn't there before. Jake was sitting on the couch, but Daniel, his friend, was standing near the window, staring out. His back was turned to me, but there was something magnetic about him. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but something about the way he stood there, so still, made me feel uneasy. It was like he was waiting for something, or someone, or maybe even me. "Hey, Mom, you're back." Jake's voice broke the silence, and I smiled, trying to shake off the strange feeling that had settled in my chest. "Yeah, just got back," I replied, setting the bags down on the kitchen counter. But as I glanced back toward Daniel, I saw that he was now facing me, his eyes locking with mine. They were dark, intense, and for a split second, I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was the kind of gaze that could unravel you if you weren't careful. "How was the market?" Daniel asked, his voice low, but with an edge that made it sound almost too formal. "It was fine," I said, forcing a smile, trying to shake off the growing unease. There was no reason for me to feel this way. He was just Jake's friend, after all. I walked into the kitchen, but I couldn't stop thinking about the strange way Daniel had looked at me. Something in his expression lingered. It felt almost predatory. But that was absurd, right? I was overthinking things. He was just a teenage boy, and I was overreacting. As I put away the groceries, I could hear them whispering in the other room, their voices barely audible. But still, something about the exchange between them felt different. I could sense the shift, like they were talking about something they didn't want me to hear. My curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself stepping closer to the door. Through the small gap in the door, I could see Jake and Daniel sitting on the couch, but their body language had changed. Jake, who was usually so laid back, looked tense, and Daniel was leaning in a little too close for comfort. He was talking, but his voice was barely a whisper. I couldn't hear the words, but the way they were interacting made my heart race. Before I could retreat, the door creaked, and Jake looked up, his eyes widening. "Mom, what are you doing?" Caught, I quickly turned and tried to act casual. "Nothing, just putting the things away." I left the room, but something inside me felt wrong, like a storm was brewing just beneath the surface, and I couldn't shake the feeling. It was as if I had stepped into a world that wasn't mine, where things were happening that I wasn't supposed to see, and I had no idea how to navigate it. That night, after dinner, things felt even more strange. Daniel had stayed for dinner, and although I tried to keep the conversation light, I couldn't help but notice the tension that seemed to hang between us. He would glance at me more often than usual, his gaze lingering just a bit too long, and I could sense that something was off. Every time he smiled, it felt a little too calculated, like he was playing some game that I didn't understand. After dinner, Jake excused himself, saying he was going to hang out with his friends, but Daniel stayed behind. He sat on the couch, fiddling with his phone, but the atmosphere was thick with something unspoken. I tried to ignore the feeling, but it wouldn't go away. "Do you need help with anything?" Daniel asked, his voice low and smooth, sending a shiver through me. "No, I'm fine," I replied quickly, almost too quickly, but I couldn't shake the unease I was feeling. He stood up and moved closer to where I was standing. My heart started to race again as he reached for the dishes I was drying, his fingers brushing against mine. The touch was brief, but it felt electric. The air between us seemed to crackle, and I took a step back, trying to regain control over my thoughts. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," he said, his tone sincere, but there was an undercurrent to it that I couldn't quite place. It was as though he was aware of something I didn't want to acknowledge. "It's fine," I managed, trying to steady my breathing. But as I looked at him, I realized that there was something more to this, something I had been denying, something I didn't want to admit. Daniel wasn't just Jake's friend. He was someone who had an effect on me, an effect I didn't want to feel. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about him, about his presence, the way he looked at me, the way his touch had sent shivers down my spine. I knew it was wrong, that he was too young, that he was practically family, but the attraction was undeniable. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how dangerous it could be. The next few days were filled with awkwardness. Every time Daniel came over, I tried to keep my distance, but it felt impossible. There was an invisible pull between us, and every time I tried to look away, he was there, his eyes following me, his presence overwhelming. It was late one evening when everything finally came to a head. Jake was out with his friends again, and I was alone in the house with Daniel. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the tension building between us, thick like a storm about to break. I tried to stay busy, but Daniel was everywhere, his presence impossible to ignore. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and heavy with something I couldn't quite place. "I don't think you understand how I feel," he said, stepping closer. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. His eyes were so intense, so searching, that I felt like he was looking right through me. "You're not just Jake's mom," he continued, his voice almost a whisper now. "You're more than that to me." My heart pounded in my chest, and I didn't know how to respond. Everything inside me screamed that this was wrong, but the attraction, the pull, was too strong. I stepped back, but Daniel reached out and touched my arm, his touch sending a shock through me. And in that moment, I realized something. The danger of our connection was only part of the story. The deeper danger was in the truth I was trying to deny, my feelings for him. It was a moment that could change everything, but it was one I would have to face, whether I was ready or not. The days that followed that night were a blur of confusion and heightened emotions. It was as if the world around me had shifted, and I was caught in a place I didn't want to be. Every time I saw Daniel, the air seemed to thicken, and a strange electricity pulsed between us. He wasn't just Jake's friend anymore. He had become something more, something I couldn't deny, though I desperately wanted to. That evening, after Jake came home, I tried to act normal, tried to pretend that nothing had changed. I couldn't afford to let on what I was feeling, especially not with him around. But every time Daniel entered the room, my heart would race. I couldn't help it. It was as if he had become the focal point of my existence, drawing me in with every look, every word. It was a pull that felt almost impossible to resist, but I had to try. Jake, of course, noticed the tension. He had always been sharp, aware of the smallest shifts in atmosphere. At dinner one night, as Daniel sat across from me, I felt the heat of his gaze. His eyes were so dark, so full of things I didn't understand. I had to look away, but it was too late. Jake was already watching me closely. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern. I forced a smile, trying to hide the fact that my heart was in my throat. "Of course, just tired, that's all." Daniel didn't say anything, but his gaze never left me. He could tell I was lying. I could feel it as though he was waiting for me to admit the truth. I couldn't, no matter how badly I wanted to, no matter how much I felt the weight of his unspoken words pressing against me. After dinner, I excused myself and retreated to my room, hoping that time alone would calm my racing thoughts. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel wasn't going to let this go. The way he had touched my arm, the way his eyes had locked onto mine, it was clear he wasn't just going to back off, and somehow that terrified me more than I wanted to admit. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I heard the soft creak of floorboards. It wasn't unusual. Jake often stayed up late, but this time there was something different in the way the steps were taken, slow, deliberate. And then the door to my room opened, just a crack. I froze, holding my breath. Was it Jake? But when the figure stepped into the dim light of the hallway, I saw it was Daniel. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering. Daniel, I whispered, my voice shaky. What are you doing here? He didn't answer at first. Instead, he stepped closer, his presence filling the space between us. I couldn't stop thinking about you, he finally said, his voice low and intense. You know that, right? I wanted to say something, anything, to push him away, to make him understand that this was wrong. But when I looked into his eyes, everything I had ever wanted to say seemed to evaporate. The intensity in his gaze made my pulse quicken, and for a moment, I forgot about the rules, about the consequences. You're Jake's friend, I whispered, though even as I said the words, I knew they weren't enough to stop what was happening. His lips curled into a half smile, a smile that seemed to hold so many secrets. I know, he said softly, but I think you know there's more to it than that. I felt a shiver run down my spine as he moved closer. My mind screamed for me to push him away, to put up a wall, but my body was betraying me. My heart raced as he reached out, gently brushing his fingers against my cheek. Daniel, I said, my voice trembling, but he cut me off, his touch now sliding to my neck, sending an electric current through my skin. Don't say anything, he whispered. Just feel it. Just feel what's between us. I wanted to resist, to tell him that this couldn't happen, that it was wrong, but I couldn't. The pull was too strong. I felt his lips brush against my forehead, soft and gentle, and in that moment it felt as if everything in the world had narrowed down to this single point, this single, dangerous connection. But then, just as quickly as it had started, he stepped back, his eyes filled with an unreadable expression. I'm sorry, he said, his voice almost a whisper now, as if he had come to his senses. I sat there, breathless, watching him as he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me to try and make sense of what had just happened. For the rest of the night I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about how everything felt so real and yet so wrong. What was I supposed to do now? I knew I couldn't ignore what had happened between us. I knew it wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was something deeper, something darker, and I couldn't escape it. The next day, everything felt heavy. I couldn't look at Daniel without feeling that burning sensation in my chest. It was like I could feel him watching me, even when he wasn't around, and when he was there, I couldn't think straight. I couldn't do this anymore. I had to confront him. I had to end it before it spiraled out of control. I found him in the backyard later that afternoon, sitting on the porch steps. His head was down, his posture slumped as if he knew this conversation was coming. Daniel, I said, my voice tight. We can't do this. It's wrong. He didn't look up at first, but I could feel him listening. I know, he finally said, his voice low, almost resigned. But I can't stop how I feel about you. I swallowed hard. I don't want to hurt you, but this is not something we can keep pretending is okay. It's not just about you and me. It's about everything we could lose. Daniel slowly looked up at me, his eyes full of something I couldn't name. There was pain there, but there was also understanding. He knew this couldn't go on, but he couldn't deny what we shared. "I won't say I can forget it," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "but I'll respect your decision." I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my chest, though the relief was fleeting. I knew it wasn't over. What had happened between us was far from something either of us could simply erase. But for now, we both understood that it had to end. I walked back inside, my heart heavy with the knowledge that I had just let go of something I couldn't fully explain, something I might never fully understand. But as I turned the corner, I saw Jake standing in the hallway, watching me. His eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw the same understanding there, as if he too knew something had shifted, something irreversible. And I realized then that even if we had ended it, the consequences of that night would linger, casting a shadow over everything. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more exciting, suspenseful stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. There's so much more to come, and I promise you won't want to miss a single moment of it.